Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I am Michaël Bikard, an associate professor of strategy here at INSEAD in Fontainebleau, on Fontainebleau campus. Welcome to our INTHECASE seminar series, webinar series. This is a webinar series that was launched by Digital at INSEAD with the support of Accenture, and we are very grateful for the support in this. The idea for these seminars is a little bit to reproduce the atmosphere in class with a little bit of an introduction, some of the key frameworks that I would use to teach the case, but more importantly then meeting the case protagonist and discussing with them some of the challenges discussed in the case and beyond. Okay, before we get started, talk about this case. This is a case about three key topics, and that's one thing I like about this case. This is also a very short case. I don't know if you had a chance to have a look at it. It's just 2 pages, and it brings together insights about three really big topics in innovation, namely the diffusion of innovations, topic of entrepreneurship, as well as adapting to technological change for legacy organizations. So before I jump in to the content, I wanted to get a sense from you about a few things. And the first one, I guess, is I wanted to ask you where you are connecting from. So if you could scan this QR code and answer the question. Alternatively, you can also connect on polev.com /Bikard, my last name, B-I-K-A-R-D. The link is in the chat. Okay, so we have most people are in Europe, and with a few people in Asia and Australia. I guess considering that this is happening too early for America, it kind of makes sense. Next question. Have you ever been, this is a strangely worded question. Have you ever used Generali services? If you would need a QR code again, it's here. Or again, you can use the polev.com and the /Bikard to connect to this. Okay, so we have about 30% of people here, or a quarter of people here that have used Generali services before, maybe 30%. I guess for those who have used it, how happy were you about it? Being polite because this is a case on Generali. Okay, very good. Next question. When you think of Generali, what words come to mind? Again, for those who have still not had a chance to connect, this is the QR code. And I want to activate this question.
Michael, sorry, but the QR code is not visible, unfortunately. People have been asking in the Q&A also. I'm very sorry.
Yeah, so I keep showing the QR code. If you can't, if the QR code doesn't work, please connect using the link provided in the chat. It's polev.com /Bikard. Again, I'm happy to show quickly the QR code, but when I show the QR code, the survey stops working. So that's the reason why I cannot show both the QR code and the survey sentence. So if you I'm going to show you again the QR code here. But if you don't have, if you miss the QR code, please use the link provided in the chat. Okay, so think of Generali, you think insurance, obviously, you think Italy, you think traditional insurance company, old school. Legacy, right? So it tells us something about reliable. Okay, so one of those is positive, strong. Okay, so we have this idea of strong, reliable, but also traditional, old school, legacy. No one said innovation for some reason. Talking about legacy insurance company, how innovative do you think they are? If you think of Generali, but or AXA or Allianz. Okay, so in terms of image, at least in the people in this webinar, it seems that it is not the image of a very innovative company. To be fair, this is a company that's almost 200 years old. So in terms of survival, it's quite impressive, but perhaps less innovative. And finally, if you don't think it's innovative, then I guess, when do you think they are likely to thrive for another 100 years? Most of those companies have been around for more than 100 years, right? You believe they will get disrupted? Do you believe that this is a okay? So it seems that in general we have an image here of a company that is large, traditional, perhaps not the most innovative, and perhaps is at risk of getting disrupted. So I mentioned earlier, this is a case about 3 big topics, and let's start with the first one, the diffusion of innovation. This is, of course, a case about Web3, about DeFi, a topic that was extremely hot not that long ago, and that somehow became a lot less hot very recently. So how do we think about this? And certainly that's one of the questions we can ask in this case. Obviously, a lot of people will tell you, well, when you talk about the diffusion of technology, diffusion of innovation, we need to go back from fundamental, the basics. And one thing, the basics is always you get a version of the S curve, right? And this S curve is pretty straightforward. At the beginning, the technology is not really working. It's very imperfect. There's a lot of new entrants. It's not clear what shape it's going to take. But at some point, someone figures out what the right shape is. And then there is this explosion, huge growth, until everybody has adopted technology. And so it kind of tapers off. That's the general story. And probably the most used framework, awake mental framework to think about the diffusion of innovation. I'm going to argue that it's a great framework in some way, but it can be very deceptive in others, because if you look at the median innovation, its spread does not look at all like that. The median innovation, its spread will look something. And by the way, innovators will always tell you that they are here, right? This is the beginning. This is the time to enter, and things are likely to boom. So time to invest your time to invest your money in the innovation. But if you look at the average or the median innovation, the adoption curve really doesn't look like that. It really looks like that. Right? Most innovations will fail, and most innovation never spread. Now, does that mean that the S curve is wrong? I think it's wrong most of the time, yes. Unless you think of it as the diffusion of innovation for innovation that diffuses. Right? There's a survivor bias, a selection bias. And once you understand that you focus on those that do diffuse, then fine. You can use the S curve. But even then, this is not the only framework around. Another popular framework is the Gartner curve. And if you're familiar with the Gartner curve, it will tell you that there's going to be a bubble at the beginning, and then eventually it will diffuse, but the time between diffusion and the bubble could be years. So you see that the S-curve is not necessarily the right framework. It might be the right framework when we think about DeFi, or it might not be. Maybe the Gartner curve is more adequate, or maybe we'll just never take off, right? So in light of all these challenges with new technologies and innovation, it would be tempting for many companies and many managers to just decide it's just too hard. Right? Why would you invest when the chances of success are so low? And that's when the question of adapting to technological change comes in. Right? Why would you invest in those things when the chance of being successful are so low? Well, in a way, you may not have a choice. And that's where it comes. This is a quote from 2016 from Pierre Nanterre, the CEO of Accenture, the sponsor of this webinar, saying digital is the main reason just over half of the company from the 40 or 500 have disappeared since 2000. Right? That was in 2016 that he said that. So it tells you a sense of, well, if digital is really going to change the world and replace these legacy companies by more nimble, more digital companies, then even though innovation is super hard, well, you may not have a choice. You have to just do it, and you have to figure it out. You don't have the luxury to just sit and wait for other people to do it. And that gets back to the old idea developed by Joseph Schumpeter of innovation as a process of creative destruction. So why do we see so much destruction as part of the innovation? Well, I believe that the way to think about this, at least at the fundamental level, is that the set of technologies that we have determine the set of available solutions, whereas the set of the society determines the set of problems that we have. And organizations somehow provide kind of rigid links between the set of the solution that we can actually solve. And once you understand that those are rigid, they're rigid because there are a set of processes and incentives and skills and culture, and those create all kinds of rigidity, meaning that the link between the solutions of today might not be and the problems of today might not be adapted for the solutions of tomorrow and the problems of tomorrow. And that means that to adapt, firms have to go through this process of creative destruction, meaning that new innovation comes in, new organization will emerge, new ecosystem will form, and of course, many existing organization and ecosystem will die. And you could think that that's great. Organizations should just be. Why do we care that organizations survive? And that's one point of view. But many organizations, believe it or not, want to survive. And if they want to survive, then they have to bring this process in-house. Right? There is no way to survive without changing your operating model, because operating models are something that are about a specific set of solutions and problems that are here at a specific time. Which brings us to the question of entrepreneurship, right? So if we want to adapt, we need people to make things change. And I think the two protagonists of this case are this kind of people, the people that are trying to move the organization forward by helping fight against the rigidity of organizations, right? What's this rigidity? Well, every organization has been shaped around this kind of S-curve when things became successful. So they've developed specific set of culture, structure, incentive, and skills to be a specific link between a set of problem solutions, right? So the alignment of culture, structure, incentive, people, and their strategy has been material to the success of any organization. The problem is when they correspond to the strategy of the legacy strategy. Shifting that to a new strategy for shifting from one business model to the other is extremely difficult. Essentially, you have to go often against existing culture, against existing structure, incentives, people, etc., so that you can adapt the organization of the past to the organization of the future. That's what I'm going to finish here with a quote from another one of my speakers here, Neil Cross, who was Chief Innovation Officer at DBS Bank, who was saying, an entrepreneur's job is to effectuate change while slowly getting fired, right? Eventually, you push the boundaries so much that you get fired. This is absolutely not what we wish to our speakers today, the protagonists, but certainly this is something that we've seen happen a lot when people push the boundaries, but we're trying to help the organization adapt to the future. So thank you so much, Pietro and Samyr, for being with us today. I wanted to ask, I guess first, Pietro, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about Generali, as well as the creation of HITS and what it is?
Sure. So hi everybody, and really happy of being here. I'm Pietro Carnevale, and I'm the CEO of HITS. Few words about me. I spent around 20 years on the edge of innovation, transformation, strategy, working both for corporate and also in consulting, always in financial services, which again, I think what mentioned has a lot of similarities between banking and insurance. I'm now, as I said, CEO of HITS, which is a Generali company, and we define it as a corp-up studio. So essentially a company focused on building up partnership with startup to execute ideas, innovative ideas that address the challenge of the organization and at the same time create value. I would define it as an important job, but at the same time, not an easy one. And maybe a few words on insurance before going to Generali, because probably some of the audience is not in the industry. Insurance is a really big market. It's around a 6 trillion size market with experiencing linear growth since quite time, a single-digit growth. It's rock solid. I mean, somebody put the birth of insurance with the Great Fire of London in the 17th century, and the business model is working pretty much the same from there. Other, they put it back to the Code of Hammurabi. That was the 18th century before the birth of Jesus Christ. So it's to say the business model, it's quite resilient. And in a nutshell, it's about having some capital aside to be able to pay what you need to give back to the customer, have a strong distribution to bring this insurance product towards the customer, and some good mathematician that can price risk in the right way and can reserve the right amount of capital. Let's say that with this scenario, R&D versus other industry has never been historically at the core and in the DNA of insurance. That doesn't mean that insurers do not innovate, but mainly they do it in an incremental manner versus in a quantum leap way. What happened about a decade ago, like for other industry, the phenomenon of InsurTech. So basically, if we are looking only back in 2016, the amount of funding towards InsurTech, it was below 2 billion per year. In 21, it was 10 times higher. And even this year, even if there has been a little bit of a drop, we are still at a higher level compared to 2020. That probably means that InsurTech and the wave of technology into the industry, it's here to stay. Again, maybe a little difference compared to X-Tech in other industry. The vast majority of InsurTech, they are more here to magnify the industry versus disrupting the industry. There are some that they do so, but there is quite a balance that they are looking for collaboration. What has been the reaction of incumbent towards this wave? To summarize it, essentially, they used 3 approaches, and some of them, large incumbent, they use the 3 at the same time. One is to copy. So essentially, setting up a venture internally to try to look like an InsurTech. That again, I think it struggles a lot with the internal system, because when you are a value company and that has been around for a while, be measured with KPI of growth, it's never easy to pull it off. The second one is buy. We have capital, we can buy out InsurTech, but again, merger and acquisition is hard if you try to digest something similar to you. Imagine trying to digest something so different as a tech startup, as an insurer. And the third approach, it's about partnering up with them, which is really what HITS is about and what HITS is focusing on. And the fundamental belief, again, we are quite pragmatic towards innovation. So great part of what we do, it's about accelerating the digitalization of the core. But at the same time, by partnering with startup, we have the ability to try to unlock new value pools. And ultimately, this setup can also be used as an edge towards disruption.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. How would you think about the relationship between Generali and innovation and how it has evolved over time?
Again, maybe I start with a few numbers about Generali. You already mentioned that it's almost 200 years old. Last year we had our 190 years old anniversary, and if anybody wants to make a search on the internet, you will see statistically how unlikely it is to be a company that is value more than 1 billion, actually far away below, above 1 billion, and been around for almost 200 years. We are a leading global European insurer because, the vast majority of the business is it's in Europe. We have presence in 50 countries, 75,000 employees, and 67 million of customers. So we are really speaking about a large organization. Going to your question and the approach to innovation, I would say it evolved and it accelerated in the past years. Before, I would say that innovation was a lot left towards the initiative of single country, of coming out with new product ideas, new incremental change on their business model, which again, the limitation that by being so much short-term focused, most of the innovation were incremental and then really hard to scale at a global level. If you have a look at our last investor day, that was, I think, November last year, you see how it has been now created central, if you want, orchestration around innovation, which is really having like about 3 pillars around it. The first one, it has been the creation of an internal innovation fund worth 30 million, where basically every employee can access to get sponsored new ideas, new project ideas. The prerequisite of this idea should be Horizon 2 or Horizon 3 type of ideas. That's the way to access the fund, to incentivize going a little bit more beyond innovation. The other characteristic of this fund, it is to promote collaboration with startup, which again, as I mentioned, it has been vital for something like HITS to flourish and grow. Startup partnership, it's definitely a thing that goes beyond HITS. I think it's something that Generali it's focusing a lot across different areas of insurance, from smart home to health to embedded insurance. And there are cases also in other countries. I think one that is really worth to look at is the French one. It's called Future for Care. And this is a JV also with other industry in order to create an ecosystem around innovation. And finally, we have created for the first time a 250 million InsurTech fund. So a growth fund that we will dedicate to invest in InsurTech, with the aim, as I mentioned, to really solve the two issues that we had in the past. One, not only incremental innovation, and two, be able to scale more the successful innovation that are happening somewhere.
Perfect. Maybe Samyr, you want to jump in and complement this? But first, introduce yourself and as the co-founder of the other founder of the House of Insurtech Switzerland.
Yes, thank you, Michaël, for the invitation. First of all, so it's a pleasure to see you again. So my name is Samyr Mezzour. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer of HITS, as you can see here, and also background in consulting, strategy, engineering in the past years. Born and raised in Morocco, came to Switzerland to study and work, and co-founding HITS. To complement what Pietro has said, so yeah, remember the key word he mentioned, so core pub. So we're not a corporate, let's say, studio. We're not a startup studio. We're a corp up studio. What does that mean? Again, it's really a corporate. So Generali co-creating solutions with startups. And this is what we've been doing the past 3 years. So actually, a week ago, we celebrated our 3rd anniversary of HITS. And yes, so we do it in an exotic way. So we are some kind of a conveyor belt between the corporate world that is usually slow and, as you mentioned, Michaël, legacy, versus, okay, the fast-paced startup world. And HITS is in between, trying to bring up to speed, slowing, okay, the startups because they're moving too fast for us, and increasing the speed of the corporate with Generali. So what I like to, how we would like to, let's say, explain what HITS is doing is combining the strains of 2 DNAs. So on the one hand, our job at HITS is to understand the needs of the corporate, of Generali, from the different business units, spend a lot of time understanding the root causes of those needs, and then start to, let's say, prototype a solution, test that solution with our customer base or with our employees, and come up with a customer-centric prototype. So that's one strain of the DNA, and now we combine it with the DNA of the other side, which is the DNA of the startups, and we come up with that customer-centric prototype. Again, it's a prototype, but we need it to be developed. And this is where we start looking for which startup can help us put the engine under that hood. And then, okay, this is where the startup comes, 1 or 2 maybe, help us to go from the step of prototype to an MVP to a scalable solution. So this is a bit more detailed of what HITS is doing. And this is where we let fly, okay, the rockets that you can see up there.
There's a question. By the way, feel free to ask questions to both of our speakers. There's already a question for how do you get in touch with Generali if you're a startup in the InsurTech space?
Contact us. I mean, we're pretty informal. I mean, guys, we love. I mean, every day we are in touch. Okay, with startups. So in our space in here, which is a 600 square meters innovation garage, we have I think about 13 or 14 startups represented. But yeah, so we are really co-creating together in here. But we also okay, other startups have their own offices in Europe, but we're still working with them virtually. So please, yes, contact us and see, okay, what if you can add value to Generali or Generali BU business unit.
Perfect. Of course, this is a case on Web3 about DeFi, and even though DeFi, or like on we should say crypto, is not nearly as cool now as it was 6 months ago. How can you just comment on the relationship between this big legacy insurance organization and the whole crypto phenomenon and how this has evolved over time?
Okay, so let's first understand, okay, what DeFi means. So DeFi, decentralized finance, by explaining what is a CeFi, which is a centralized finance. So in the past decades, we are living in a CeFi world. So you have one bank, centralized, that has thousands of accounts of users, of people. So everything is centralized within that bank. So this is, let's say, CeFi. DeFi is you don't need that bank anymore. You are your own bank. Because today, Michaël, if I want to transfer you money, so I go to my bank account, my bank transfers that money to your bank, and then you can start, okay, do whatever you want. But now, I mean, with DeFi, it's just, okay, my private key is sending you, or my bank account, I mean, my own account, I am the bank, and I'm sending you, I transfer the money to your account. You're the bank as well. Now, imagine all those thousands of people actually they are their own banks, and that's why we call it decentralized finance. And on top of that, you can add all the use cases that you see in the financial world. So lending, buying stocks, buying cryptocurrencies, and so on and so forth. So now, yes, there has been a boom and bust, but booms and busts since blockchain existed. So let's say, the theory in 2008, but the practice in 2009, you had booms and busts all the time, but the trend has always been growing. So I expect to have further booms and busts. Now, we are in the so-called crypto winter, but we should not underestimate the underlying technology that is blockchain. So cryptocurrencies are a use case on top of the underlying technology. So I truly believe that everything that is promised in blockchain today will reach mass adoption in the future. It's like, take back the internet in the year 2000 with the internet bubble. Everything that was promised in the year 2000, basically, you will have internet at your fingertips. You will be able to view videos on your mobile phone. In 2000, that was not possible. It happened 8, respectively 10 years later, right? So the first smartphone enabling that, was the iPhone. The other smartphones promised to have internet at your fingertips, but they failed at it. Same as today for blockchain. So do not underestimate blockchain.
No, we get that you are a believer. That's wonderful. The believer inside the big legacy organization. So this has to create some kind of tension somewhere. And so I wanted to know, like, what is your sense beyond your own kind of optimism as we go to DeFi? What has been the general big organizations relationship with this general phenomenon, and how have you been trying to bridge the two, I guess?
So yes, in the beginning, there's always skepticism. I mean, do not forget we are an insurance, and we perceive a lot of risks, but we perceive also risk opportunities. So everywhere there is a risk, it's also an opportunity for an insurance. So yes, if you're in the beginning of the S curve, as you say, or in the Gartner curve in the beginning, in the hype curve, of course, people that do not deal with that technology are skeptics. But at a certain point of time, if you have the hype and the trough of disillusionment, well, we are now really in the bottom, and then we will start to grow again. This is my prediction. And I think the past years were also educational for the legacy, let's say, part of Generali, to start experimenting with it. So from ignoring it, or let's say putting aside because it is something that it's a toy technology, to actually starting experimenting with it in different business units of Generali, it shows that we're onto something here. And actually, we are doing business with some of the use cases currently. So you see that the legacy is adapting and starting to go towards embracing, let's say, the technology. Maybe Pietro, I don't know if you want to also add some.
Yeah. Happy to jump in. Yeah, I think education is key, right? Because the worst thing, I think, it's almost a prerequisite to create action. It is educate. I think one of the lessons learned of the past years on this topic, it was we started try to find experiment around blockchain on the core of insurance. So how can we actually create an insurance product? And the wall, if you want, or the immune system react quite strong to it. If you find experimentation and use case that are more adjacent to the business model of an insurance, then it's kind of easier to find room to experiment. And specific on blockchain, I think if you start using it for productivity, for the investment side of insurance, or simply as a payment tool for customer to pay out their premium, then you find a better room of maneuver.
Great. And while we are back at the general kind of innovation relationship between general innovation, there's two questions here that I wanted to ask. One for Marigiana, who is asking, is there a specific interest for RegTech innovation at Generali apart from what you have mentioned about general broader innovative ideas? That's one. And two, Nanik is asking, how do you work with startups, paid pilots, stakes in the startups, licensing? Do you jointly own the IP? Or does the startup own the IP and the ability to scale across the industry?
Okay, maybe I start with the latter question. There are different setups, and sometimes how you start is different from how you end up. In general, let's say we never get POC for free, so there should be a need, there should be a willing to pay. So each and every startup that works with us has some sort of remuneration for the job that we do. Again, coming from an insurer, it's also to avoid adverse selection, because if you find startup that they do work for free, probably you're not working with the best. In principle, we don't like co-IP because it's really complicated. So the vast majority of the solution that we develop, there are pieces of IP that are clearly on the startup side and other IP that are clearly on the other side. But shared IP, it's not something so far that we have been advised to some extent to go for it. And then how it can end up? It can end up in probably three different ways. Now the startup is growing and become like any other provider or incumbent provider of tech for Generali. This is one. The second one is more setting up profit sharing, revenue sharing agreement, because maybe the solution that we came out with, it's not only for Generali, but can be for somebody else. And the last one, it can be more on a J venture setup, where actually we create a new company together with startup, where each of us has a certain share to bring it to the market, the product. And then really quickly on the RegTech, I mean, RegTech, it's clearly a topic. So, and I think at least so far, mainly in, I call it auditable by design, because there is a lot of paperwork on RegTech, and it's not great on regulatory issue. And so I think RegTech has a big space. I have to say that in the past, it has not been really at the heart of what we have been doing, but why not? I think if it is a vertical that is maturing, if the question was from a startup in that space, as before, just reach out and we'll have a look.
Great. We have other questions coming in. By the way, if you're free to ask more questions, this is the part of the talk. We have 20 minutes left, the time to ask more questions. So Giovanni has a quite funny question, actually, the way he wrote it at least. So he writes, earlier this year, there was a boardroom battle for control of Generali, which became very public and which was all over the media and the press, irrespective of whether the DAO is or will be successful. Wouldn't it have been helpful for senior management to put his much more front and center within the organization to counter perceptions of Generali, removing perception from a geriatric pussycat to a virile digital lion? What is the pushback from senior management to having followed that strategy?
I don't think there's a pushback, okay, for digitalizing, okay. I mean, Generali, I think this is one of the key pillars of the strategy of Generali, is really to embrace, let's say, the 21st century, and there's a lot of effort that it takes, okay, to go into that direction. So the digital lion is alive and roaring. So again, it's a 191 years old company, and moving really from, let's say, legacy to analog to digital in few years is not possible. We're not born digital, we're born analog, transforming into digital. So it's going to take the time it takes, and this is where we are coming, okay, to accelerate, okay, that transformation into that end. So this is what I can say. And if it takes a decade, it's going to take a decade. But instead of doing things ourselves, so creating the wheel or reinventing the wheel ourselves, no, we partner with the best, with the startups that will help us, the best in class to accelerate the innovation. So this is and yeah, the fact that HITS exists is a proof that we are going towards the right direction.
Okay, great. So Inga is asking, how have you been connecting to banks in your efforts to experiment with DeFi for the incorporation of the tokenized form of money that is programmable to accommodate your insurance use cases?
Okay. So here we have different use cases we've been also experimenting on. So from crypto asset protection, so basically answering the question, if you lose your private key, you lose your wealth. So how can we counter that? How can we help mitigate that? So we've been working on this. And so this is one use case we've been working also with, let's say, financial services providers. The other one is, you mentioned, tokens. We've been working also on the use cases, also with the bank and with one of the large art fair there is in the world on, again, here the word NFT has its boom and bust, but it was an NFT platform 2 years before the boom, 2021, but for physical art. So this is, and not digital art. So this is something that we've been also working on. And I'm absolutely convinced that this use case will be actually booming in the next years. Another use case is that we've been working in DeFi and also considering working with banks as well, is around financial well-being. So someone mentioned, DAO, so decentralized autonomous organization, which is a concept of, having a community taking care of a problem, and financial well-being is something that all of us will need to focus on in the next years because of the inflation, recession, but also about this retirement savings gap that will happen in years or decades to follow. So basically, you hit retirement and basically you don't have enough savings to have a decent life. So here, if we can use the community or this decentralized finance to help people tackle those challenges, I think DeFi can be a stupendous tool for that.
Yeah, to complement, I think a fourth space, when we define insurance, typically, and Generali is part of it, we are insurer and asset manager, because on the pension part, of course, we manage the asset. And use case there, leveraging on DeFi, we have done certain things with a company called INSEAD, which is, again, a startup. It allows you to invest in fund leveraging on blockchain technology. And I think that goes back to what I was mentioning before, that sometimes finding a real use case on adjacent business, there is more space and openness to try out.
Great, wonderful. Andres is asking, who would be running the blockchain if using a publicly available one, such as Ethereum? How do you keep the chain secure without the underlying incentive of cryptocurrencies? If using a private one, who would be running it?
So if you take back, the concept of insurance, Pietro mentioned that it is the concept of insurance exists already 4,000 years ago, which was a mutuality, right? So I'm not coming to the answer, just to do let's say back to the past point of answer. So in Mesopotamia, you had the caravan that with the nomads, delivering cargo from point A to point B, and those caravans have been attacked, right? And to avoid these attacks, let's say this is how the concept of insurance was born, in the sense that instead of having, you would take your cargo and split it among different, let's say, traders, so that if one caravan would be attacked, then the rest of the cargo can be delivered A to B. So the concept of mutuality. Now, to answer your question, blockchain can help do that again. That actually, if I am attacked, if my node is attacked, okay, you have the rest of the nodes that can actually cover for you. So it doesn't make sense to have a closed blockchain, but to have an open blockchain, first, point one. And point two, you want to have a large network, because smaller blockchains with a smaller layer one, now we're getting technical, they are easily attackable if you get to the 51% of the computing power. So you want to do something that is large, like Ethereum, that has been proven, and that has, okay, so large community that is fast-paced, and that has, okay, the smart contracts. So if something happened, then okay, there will be a trigger for a consequence. So in a nutshell, large community, open blockchain, and something that has been time proved in the past decade, and not something new that is small. Hopefully that answered the question.
Right. So, I mean, we have actually two big categories of question in the Q&A. One is about like the whole Web3 thing, and the other one is about innovation. Oops. And the other one is about innovation. So I wanted to go back to maybe to Pietro and to ask maybe bigger innovation question before going back to the Web3 side. So one of them is, what has been the biggest challenge in your quest of connecting the two DNAs of traditional and innovative?
So if there should be one, I would pick, find the right balance, how much to connect innovation effort and how much to disconnect. The core organization tend to want to have innovation close, but when it's too close, then de facto you are tending only to incremental innovation, because KPI, again, go back to short-term return in 3 years, better in 1 year. At the same time, if you only do disruptive innovation, so Horizon 3 type of innovation, and you are totally disconnected, in reality, you are losing the strength of having close to you the 190 years old large organization. And so to scale, you lose the ability to scale. And this balance, I think, is the biggest challenge, because it's something that each and every quarter you need to make a check and understand, am I too connected? Am I too disconnected? And keep on finding the right balance. Also knowing that organizations, they are not static. People change, organization change, and how to find the right balance, it's probably the biggest challenge. And all goes back, I think, to trust. Again, you have to be able to deliver. You need to be able to show value and balance out this value creation. That's something that can speak to the top guys of the organization, and as well preserve the space for more innovative activity that might return in a longer time horizon.
Great. So going back to the Web3 discussion, lots of questions around use cases. So what other use cases do you have? You already sell insurance for crypto. Clearly, some people in the audience would be interested in your services. So where can you find them? What other use cases are you exploring? Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, are we selling crypto insurance? Not yet. Okay, because we don't have, let's say, the the mass market out there. I mean, still okay that the market is still small, and if you see it okay country by country, it is even smaller. But I'm sure it is something okay that we'll consider when we have okay the volumina. On the use cases, I mean, what were the other questions? So on what other use cases we have, or
yeah, tell us more about specific use cases you're exploring, things that looks promising.
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, the one that is very close to my heart is the one that I mentioned on financial well-being. We are working now with a couple of startups. So in a joint venture model, as Pietro mentioned, how we can make people, let's say, more aware about their financial well-being, because from a behavior point of view, people like to spend more money than, let's say, save money and think about their let's say their financial well-being. So if you take the example, so recent research says that if, like, okay, saving money feels like giving free money to a stranger. It hurts. This is what behavioral science says. So we would love, okay, for you to think more about your financial well-being. So we need, okay, to help you, let's say, address that issue. And how will be DeFi helping for that? Is if you do anything that improves your financial well-being, we will reward you. And this is where the tokenomics will kick in. So every time you do something, so you save money or you invest your money somewhere, instead of spending it, you will be rewarded with tokens. Okay, I'm not saying, okay, now crypto whatsoever, but the idea is the more you take care of yourself, you will be rewarded. So that's all your life for the next decades. Your financial well-being will be improved, and at the same time you will be rewarded, so that when you hit retirement, you'll be finally, let's say, living with a financial peace of mind. I just tried to delve a little bit into one of the use cases that we are currently working on.
Great, no, that's quite helpful. So Inga is asking, DeFi puts an emphasis on digital asset custody with potential of self-custody. Could you share your mental model for the selection and or assessment of potential digital asset providers? Or are you embracing self-custody with cold wallets?
So, okay, we're not custodians of private keys. So in the crypto asset protection, so now I'm telling you about the mental model around the crypto asset protection. So the concept is the following: people that are crypto wealthy or have some cryptos, they fear to lose their crypto wealth, and their basic fears are, after interviewing a lot of people, it's the fear of, okay, losing their cold wallet. Okay, so second is losing their crypto wealth via, let's say, ransomware. Another one is in case of, let's say, extortion. So like the gun to the point scenario. This is really something that people are fearing. You know, when they bought Bitcoin in 2013, and now, okay, it's still around, okay, 15,000, 16,000. So they're crypto millionaires. And the fourth is when they die. So if you die, basically your crypto wealth, okay, disappears with you. So your kids, your family will never see, okay, the private key. So anyways, we developed a solution that actually addresses all those fears. And one is to have a custody, so custodian, that will hold your private key. The second one is to have a multi-signature as a service. So I have one key, you are our customer, so Michael, you have a private key, and then a notary would have also one key. And we would need two signatures, so unlocking with two keys to release your funds. So if you die, at least you have the custodian and a notary that has a key that can talk to your family and give the private key to your partner or your kids. So in a nutshell, we will not be custodian. There will be, let's say, an experienced company that will be the custody, but we will be responsible for that for that crypto asset protection.
Okay, great. Maybe one last word from Pietro on how do you influence and convince, that's Mark's question, how do you influence, convince all stakeholders internally, externally to keep investing across phases of innovation? You have 1 minute to answer.
Okay, so I think it's not different from the innovation approach, right? You need to understand the needs. And I think each of the major stakeholders, they might come from different angles. So to make an example, if I take the CEO, visibility is important. Brand visibility is important. And when you do good things on innovation that are visible, increase the value of the brand. People, again, having a visible factor in innovation, it helps to attract talents, to retain talents, to upskill talents. And in the war, if you want, that we are right now of talents, this is again a value. But I think these two, they are not enough if then you cannot show real tangible value more in economic terms. Economics that need to be different from the economics of the traditional insurance company that has been around for 190 years. And that's why in this space, we also invest and get minority stake into startup, because through the collaboration, they increase in value and we can harvest value out of it. At the same time, we need also to measure the tangible benefits that we bring into the organization, because that's what, at the end of the day, convinces the CFO.
Perfect. Great way to end. So thank you again. We're out of time. Thank you again, everybody, for contributing. Thank you, Samyr and Pietro, for sharing all these insights. We're done with this seminar, with this webinar. The next there will be a tech talk on January 18th. Thank you all and have a nice rest of your day. Thank you.